Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers on the broadcast today, part 2 of my interview with Congresswoman Dina Titus, plus Bryan Wachter of the Retail Association of Nevada and former Assemblyman Elliot Anderson. It's all coming up next on our all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, this is part 2 of our interview with Congresswoman Dina Titus. She's been kind enough to stick around because there's so much going on. We're taping this the morning after the debate. Lots of things to talk about still. The Supreme Court. It appears that there is no way to stop the president's nominee from getting on the Supreme Court. Do you believe that if the Democrats take control of the Senate and the White House, that they will end up expanding the size of the Supreme Court?
Well, you know, that's not in the Constitution, the size of the court. It's been from 5 to 10 over the course of our history. FDR threatened to expand it when they were ruling against his New Deal programs, and they suddenly backed off. This is something that's decided in the Senate. The House doesn't have anything to do with it. So I can't speak for the Senate, but I think that if they do this and they ram it through, all things are on the table. The real concern, and that there are many, which is siding with corporations, a woman's right to choose, some of the environmental policies, but the real thing that comes up first is the hearing on the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which is already scheduled for a week after the election. And this person has said in writings that it's unconstitutional and the Supreme Court should not have upheld it. So if she votes to overturn the ACA, it's going to hurt millions of people, including a lot of people in Nevada, where we've always had a high number of uninsured people with pre-existing conditions, children up to age 26. Women who will have to pay more for the same kind of treatment as men. It will be devastating.
But let me ask you this, in reality, because what existed before Obamacare no longer exists. That whole system is gone. It's all been revamped to Obamacare. If the Supreme Court were to negate Obamacare, wouldn't the basis of this system have to be the beginning of whatever new system there was? And haven't the Republicans already said things like pre-existing conditions would be covered in anything that they would push forward?
Well, they've also said that they're going to come with the new, better, cheaper plan. They've been saying that since Obamacare passed, and they've never come up with anything. President Trump keeps saying, oh, in a few weeks we're coming with it. He's come up with nothing. It'd be better to expand Obamacare, expand Medicaid, so you can bring more people in, not do away with the provision so more people are left out, especially during a pandemic.
You know, one of the things that hasn't really been covered by the media with all this discussion of packing the courts, etc., is that really this was started by Senator Reid when he was concerned about the number of judges that weren't getting admitted, and used the nuclear option, not for the Supreme Court, but for all the other courts to be able to get Democrats' choices onto the courts. Do you regret that he did that, because that opened up the door to all that we've seen now?
He felt like at the time that was the only way to get through any appointments, because the Republicans were just blocking everything. They also blocked a lot of legislation. So he says he has no regrets about that. If you open up something, though, it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Now they're using it and expanding it. Also, though, Sam, don't forget that when President Obama tried to make an appointment to the court 10 months ahead of the election, you had all these people, and they're all on record. You got video of them saying, oh, you can't do this in an election year. Well, the election has already started. It's not 10 months. People are already voting, and they're going to ram and jam this appointment through, I think, to get rid of the Obamacare, which they have hated from the beginning, and to have a Supreme Court in place in case they need it to rule on any kind of challenges to the election results.
Do you fear violence on election night or soon after if we don't get a definitive answer on election night as to who the winner is?
Well, I certainly hope not. That is not the way this country is supposed to work. One of the hallmarks of democracy is a peaceful transition of power. Trump, however, has not conceded to that. He says only if it's fair and legitimate, according to his definition. And he has called on the Proud Boys, which are a super right-wing organization that's been showing up at a lot of demonstrations armed, to stand back and stand by. Now, they took that as a call to action, even printed that on their logo the minute the president said it, and they've been celebrating all over Twitter. So he encourages that kind of violence and disagreement, as opposed to trying to bring people together for the good of the nation and moving on.
But that's not a topic of discussion within your colleagues in the House as to concerns for what might happen on election night?
Oh, of course it is a concern. You know, there are all kinds of possibilities. How long will it take to count the ballots? How much will they challenge the ballots as being illegitimate? Will it go to the House to decide? Will they try to get legislatures around the country to redefine how electors cast their votes? There are many possibilities that could happen. All of those would be peaceful, and hopefully we don't get to that. But there's a lot of concern. That's why we are trying to get people plan how to vote, vote early, vote by mail, vote in person, vote however you want to, but get out there and vote, because there's no evidence that mail-in ballots are fraudulent. They've been doing it for years in a number of the western states, including Utah, Oregon, Washington. We did it in the primary without any problems. This is just a false kind of alarm that the president's sending out, because he knows he can't win legitimacy, so he'll just try to steal the election or keep people from turning out.
Okay, I got one last question, and then I let you go, because I know you've got to, you got to go vote. Concerns about the lame duck session. You know, both parties over the years have used the lame duck to get things through that they might not have been able to get through prior to the lame duck for political reasons or other reasons. Even Abraham Lincoln, you know, got the Emancipation Proclamation passed in the lame duck, which would, obviously I think most of us would think was a very good thing. But what are your concerns about what might happen in the lame duck, especially if we are going to have a different president in January?
No doubt they'll want to get some things passed, but the good thing is you've got a divided Congress. So it'll be much more difficult for them to ram through any kind of policy without the House's agreement. However, what they can do, and what Trump said last night during the debate he intended to do, was fill as many judicial appointments as he could. And there are other federal judgeships that may be now or may become vacant that he will stack with his conservative members.
And that's where we have to leave it. Thank you so much for all this time. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you, and we'll be right back.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino. All new DC Cafe and Bar, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Ooh, your good times at Tamarack.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
Hey, Dad? What are you learning? This place is great. Huh? You gotta try this.
Wow, this stuff is great. People are gonna love it.
Yes. Yes, they will.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino. All new DC Cafe and Bar, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Your good times at Tamarack.
Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, and we are joined by Bryan Wachter. He is the Senior Vice President of Government and Public Affairs for the Retail Association of Nevada. Always a pleasure to have you on the program, sir. I want to dive right in with a question because we're short on time here. So it seems like the state is issuing notifications to businesses at the last minute and not only expecting businesses to respond, but the cost of not responding appropriately to those instructions is getting to be pretty expensive for businesses. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, what we're most frustrated with, I think, is the level of communication that we're receiving from state government agencies, and the task force. I mean, we had procedures in place like the mitigation task force that we're supposed to be meeting every week. They haven't met in 2 weeks. And so every time there's a new guidance or a new directive that comes out, it's very frustrating, especially for businesses that have been open, have been doing their job, have been striving to be good community partners. And then just to have the rules change with very little notice is just emblematic of how kind of disorganized this process has been for the last 7 months.
Are you seeing, there was a while there where it appeared that OSHA was really going after businesses. In some cases, there were accusations. They were actually getting some stores to rat on other stores in their shopping center. Are we still seeing things like that going on?
Well, it was very early on when the state government put up the toll-free lines that you could call in and kind of tattle on businesses or your neighbors on things that we're doing. And we've seen that continue through the last 7 months. And I think that was the most confusing about Directive 33 last week is during the governor's press conference, there was no mention of changes to businesses that were already in business. And then we get kind of guidance that suggests otherwise. And then almost a day later, we actually get the directive with very little time to implement it. And you're right, Sam, if we're not following state guidelines, SB4, which is the liability shield, the premise liability shield that was put into place, you no longer qualify. So these are real hard decisions that our businesses are making, and they're just struggling to be good actors.
Okay, so if you were to have the governor sitting in front of you and you were able to talk directly to him, what would you say?
I think I would say just taking a look in the frustration on the businesses that are doing what you're asking them to do, that are striving, that are, creating confrontations between employees and customers in order to fulfill the enforcement of the directives that the governor is putting down, and allow us to be able to have a chance to suggest you can't put something in 24 hours notice. Give us a week, help us understand the why behind what you're trying to accomplish, instead of what seems like a very chaotic situation. And it shouldn't be this hard, Sam, to be a good actor in Nevada, and all of our members are striving to do that. And we're asking just for a little bit of help to get our members to meet those standards.
And I can't imagine for 1 second that there are very many businesses who do not want to match whatever it takes to keep their customers safe, and for them not to be shut down. I mean, at this point in time, it seems like we're slowly but surely opening up, and one doesn't want to see things going backwards. But at the same time, if we're getting huge fines to these businesses for non-compliance in issues where they've only been given a day or so's notice, it doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, Sam, there's no question that we've seen an increase in cases over the last 3 weeks. I think last week, 1 in 40 Nevadans had tested positive for COVID. And the week before, or the last week, it was 1 in 38. The week before, it was 1 in 40. We've seen the positivity rate increase, but what we haven't seen is kind of a steady plan that businesses can use to provide some stability going forward. It does seem like the rules and the regulations are changing without any discernible pattern. And that stability is going to be what keeps businesses able to keep our employees hired, which is going to be what brings our economy back.
And also, we need businesses to continue opening for the mental stability of the population, because that's something that really hasn't been brought into this discussion nearly as much as I think it should have done. We've only got about 20 seconds left. Halloween is coming. It's one of the biggest seasons for retail. How excited are you guys about that?
You know, we're really excited about Halloween. I think everyone's looking for a chance to be able to have something to celebrate. And so this year, we're actually expecting less people to celebrate Halloween, but those that are celebrating Halloween are jumping full into it. We've seen an increase in costumes and candy, and especially home decorations. And so we're really excited to head into Halloween and then into the fourth quarter and the holiday season.
I will tell you that in my household, 4 pounds of candy have disappeared over the last 2 weeks, and so we are doing our part.
Well, come back down to the store and get some more, Sam.
Okay, Bryan Wachter, thank you very much, sir, and we'll be right back.
Dimitri Bryan here for Design Outdoor. Come visit Design Outdoor's store and backyard to see our wide selection of fire pits, barbecues, and pizza ovens, natural stone water features and fountains, and frost-proof pottery. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
Can't do it. Stupid, like my mom.
We can't do anything at Mommy's because you won't pay child support.
Dad said you cheated, and he's not even sure he's my dad.
Mommy said you left both of us, so she isn't gonna let me see you. I look just like my father.
I'm divorce attorney Marilyn York, and I may represent men, but hate has no gender, only casualties. Please, stop sacrificing your children in your war against your ex.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're pleased to welcome to the program for the first time former Assemblyman Elliot Anderson. He is the original author of Ballot Question 1, which seeks to take the Board of Regents out of the state constitution. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Sam. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. So let's start out with, you started this when you were in the legislature. Why do you want to get the Board of Regents out of the Constitution, and why are they in there in the first place?
Well, quite simply, I'm just trying to restore accountability, transparency, and oversight to the higher education system. The Constitution is unique because the Board of Regents is the only state agency that has this sort of kind of odd carve-out, and it was only done just to ensure that federal dollars would come in. The framers of the Constitution said, we don't think that the Board of Regents should have absolute control, and so they tried to make that clear. It kind of got messed up along the way, and so the only way that we can restore accountability, transparency, and oversight to the system is by passing Ballot Question 1.
All right, so let me ask you this. First of all, what are the problems that are occurring right now because of the Board of Regents being in the Constitution?
Well, literally, it's kind of gone on for decades. I mean, back in 1981, the Board of Regents said they had an unqualified constitutional right to fire professors when they got too old. They said they had virtual immunity and autonomy from the law. And then you've had just, the time that I served in the legislature, thing after thing after thing after thing. And it became very clear to me that there was no incentive for the Board of Regents or the system of higher education to self-police, because the legislature's hands were pretty tied. They could either say, well, we're going to give you a blank check of $1.2 billion every biennium, or they can say, we're going to give you no check. There was no option to do something maybe less drastic and say, well, we're going to pass this law to say, exactly what you have to do with higher education. And so that is an odd carve out that no other state agency in the state of Nevada has. And so what question one does is just try to stop that so that the legislature has the tools to correct malfeasance, but even more so that the Board of Regents have a reason to hold themselves accountable.
All right, so bottom line is that basically the legislature just appropriates a certain amount of money every biennium, and then it's up to the Board of Regents to do whatever they want to do with it?
There's a little more nuance than that, but it's kind of hard to give the really super detailed view. But what it comes down to it is if the legislature tries to pass a law that is perceived to interfere with their management or control of the university, they have the power to sue. And the times that I served in the legislature, we often heard threats that if the legislature tried to review the system and tried to, do an advisory board to get advice about higher ed, that they would sue. There's all kinds of threats that I heard during my time in the halls of the legislature.
What would be the most recent example you could give us?
I think there's a big legal dispute over community colleges. I think that the legislature for a long time wanted to see that, hey, we don't like how the Board of Regents are running the community colleges. Let's look at plans to potentially, reorganize and make that those community colleges get more help from the state. And, the regents and the legislature had different views of whether it had the legal authority to do that. And so that's probably the most recent example that I can think of.
So if this ballot question passes, and it's already passed twice through the legislature, correct?
That's correct. It passed the legislature twice with near unanimous support in both sessions.
Okay, so if it passes this time, it doesn't actually bring any immediate changes, correct?
That's correct. It creates no changes. It just allows for accountability, oversight, and transparency.
Okay, so one of the things that's been raised is that instead of having elected regents, we might have appointed regents. Are you in favor of that?
No, I've been very clear that I don't support appointing regents. I worked to defeat elected or appointed school boards in 2015 and 2017. So I'm not for appointing those boards. It would allow the legislature to pass law like it can with every other agency. So that's true, but it doesn't automatically mean that's going to happen. And I think what we've seen, the regents trying to mislead the public, there's no support for an appointed Board of Regents. It actually just died last session. It couldn't get the support in the assembly. Even Governor Sandoval, when he tried to get the Washoe County School District appointed in 2015, wasn't able to get that through. I think that was the only thing of his agenda that he didn't get done that year. So appointed boards are deeply unpopular at the legislature. And so it's kind of just an excuse that you hear getting thrown out there to try to, a desperate attempt to try to avoid accountability, oversight, and transparency.
Let me ask you to play devil's advocate with your own position here. What is the other side going to say to defend their position?
Well, they're just going to say that, that's really their main position because they know that's their only hook. So they would say, well, we don't trust the legislature. The legislature can do what it wants. And I guess my response to that is just that, well, the legislature has the power to pass law. That's what democracy is. We elect legislators every 2 years and every 4 years, and they are empowered to do the dictates of the people with what they want. And so while, they'll basically say that, well, you can't guarantee that this will never happen, and that's true. But I can't guarantee that anything will ever happen, but we don't start putting school boards and like, say, Dieter or any other agency in the Constitution. It's just the regents who has this. And so really what we're trying to do is just to restore the status quo that every single agency is subject to the law, including the Board of Regents.
One of the things I think that most people don't realize is how large the budget for the higher education system is. Between that and schools, those are the two biggest babies in the budget, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And the regents get over $1 billion every 2 years. It's a big budget item. And because the legislature can't actually pass law that directly impacts the agency like it can with every other agency, it kind of leads to this weird situation where you are expected to give the regents all this money, but then you can't it's really difficult to put conditions on that without running up against a lawsuit. And so I think this better aligns the oversight and transparency and accountability to the body that is expected to give all this money. I mean, imagine if you had to go and gave your kid a bunch of money, but then you couldn't really, tell them what to do. That's essentially the situation that the legislature has, where they are expected to give all this money, but they run up against roadblocks all the time.
And that's where we have to leave it. Elliot Anderson, thank you so much for this information, and we'll see what happens with ballot question 1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Sam.
And we'll be right back. A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Bryan Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Bryan's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Bryan today. Bryan Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at bryanculpaphotography.com.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
You can now watch Nevada Newsmakers on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Nevada Newsmakers and become a subscriber. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching and listening.